Okay, welcome to this second episode of Let's Talk About Change. And this is an initiative of the Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Office of the Order of Friars Minor in Rome. And for this second episode, we are very fortunate because if we're going to talk about climate change, this woman is really active and I'm very blessed and fortunate to work with her in this kind of advocacy. Recently, she's one of the board of directors of 350.org. She's an activist from the Philippines working on economic, environmental, social, and gender justice issues in national, regional, and global campaign. She's the coordinator of Jubilee South Asia Pacific Movement on Depth and Development, co-coordinator of the global campaign to demand climate justice, and a member of the coordinating committee of the Global Alliance on Tax Justice. She also serves as the vice president of the Freedom from Debt Coalition in the Philippines and convener of the Philippine Movement for Climate Justice. My dear friends, brothers, and sisters, without further ado, may I introduce to you our guest, Miss Liddy Napier. Hi, Liddy.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be in this show, in this program. And yes, we have been working with Father Angel for quite a while now.
Yeah, thank you for always being available to all our requests for sharing, listening in while you share your expertise. So, Liddy, before I really introduce you to our audience, uh, would you mind telling our audience what is the nature of your work?
So, as Father Angel mentioned, my main work is as coordinator of the Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development. And this involves more than 50 members in about 14 countries in Asia. And our main focus is campaigning. We campaign on, as Father Angel mentioned, economic justice issues, environment, including climate justice, as well as gender justice. So right now, we are running a campaign on transformation of energy systems. We are also about to embark on intensifying our work around debt. And we continue to work also on tax justice. And also, we take up several climate issues, including climate finance and climate action in the negotiations of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it's all about campaigning and advocacy work.
Uh, of course, we know that there are lights and shadows about this kind of work. Would you mind telling our friends what are the lights and what are the difficulties that you're facing with this kind of work?
As I think many of you have probably heard, there are many forces and groups and even of governments that are not quite happy with the issues and the demands we are making, both on the energy issues, on climate, and also on economic justice issues. So, one of the challenges that our campaigners on the ground are facing is that in many countries in Asia, there is a shrinking of what we call the democratic space. No, there's much space for them to move because government is trying to muzzle or control the movement of citizens groups. And one example, a very recent example, is the adoption into law of the anti-terror bill, and now it's the anti-terror law in the Philippines that curtails a lot of our political and civil and political rights. So that's one major challenge. Of course, also the challenge is that they're all experiencing some harassment by some of the corporations that are involved in fossil fuel industry because that's one of our targets. So these are the things that we are overcoming in terms of major challenges, because we cannot let that stop us. We know we are facing an extremely serious global pandemic, the COVID-19, and along with it, an economic crisis that's going to get much worse in the next few years. On top of that, we are also confronting a continuingly worsening climate crisis. So these are urgent things that we address. So we cannot let this harassment and curtailment of our rights stop us.
Yeah, I can really relate, no? Talking about the truth, especially demanding for climate justice. There will be people who will really react, especially the government, those in authorities, no? But as you mentioned, even though we are facing this COVID-19 crisis, we cannot also let go or forgo climate crisis. What do you
Mhm.
think about COVID-19 pandemic and its relation to the climate crisis?
Uh, well, first of all, there are many threats to that the pandemic and the economic crisis is bringing to our progress on climate change actions. For instance, the fact that we have the um, COVID-19 pandemic, it is giving governments an excuse to delay their climate actions, to delay scaling up their ambition in terms of climate actions. And of course, one of the things that we are now facing, given the economic crisis that the pandemic has created, is that many governments all around the world are considering including fossil fuel companies in their bailout plans. No? So it's really going to set us back in terms of our effort to transform energy systems in order to combat climate change. Another risk and threat that we are facing is, of course, that it has slowed down the international process for negotiations. We have heard, of course, we already all know that the annual Conference of Parties Summit that takes place November or December each year has now been postponed. It's been scheduled to take place in the UK this November, but now the UK government has announced its postponement, which is very understandable. It's not that we are questioning the reason for postponement. We know the grave danger that a big face to face meeting that involves thousands of people, that's a really risk for health risk for people. So that is understandable. But unfortunately, the downside of that is that this is an excuse for governments to postpone again, reviewing their targets and being more ambitious about their targets for climate action. Of course, you don't need a summit if a government is really decided to be more ambitious in their climate targets. They can decide that on their own. But if there is no international pressure that comes with the holding of a summit, then it gives governments more excuse to delay their actions.
Remembering the Paris Agreement about that 1.5 degree that all the leaders are talking about, in relation to COVID-19 crisis, how dangerous is global warming now that we're facing this COVID-19 crisis, considering the 1.5 degree special report of the IPCC?
Well, with COVID-19, if the resulting effect of COVID-19 is governments are even more slower to proceed with their climate action, that means they're already very inadequate targets, which is leading us to a world of 3.7 degrees, is going to even be much worse. No? If we are going to postpone action or scaling up of action, if we're going to postpone scaling up of ambition, and if there's not adequate targets, then in a few years, 3 to 4 years, we will absolutely lose the chance to keep temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. It doesn't mean we can stop it in 3 to 4 years, but it's the analogy is like a car. No, if you want to stop, put on the brakes on a car that is traveling at 100 miles per hour, and you want for it to be in a complete stop 3 miles away. That means you need to apply the brakes at a certain point in time, with enough chance for that car to make a full stop 3 miles away. If you don't apply the brakes, or you apply the brakes too late, that means you will miss that 3 miles. You will go beyond the 3 miles. That is like the analogy for climate change. If we don't do what we need to do in the next 3 to 4 years, in 4 years, we completely lose that window of keeping temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. You cannot uh, make up for that lost time. Now, if you don't do what you need to do, it's like if you don't start applying the brakes on a car, no matter how hard you push on the brake, if it's too late, it's too late. No? So that's the analogy. If we don't do what needs to be done in the next 3 to 4 years, we cannot make up for that lost time after 4 years. So that is why it's so crucial that we act now. No, the goal is for us to reach near zero emissions by 2050 in order to save humanity and the planet. But and if we don't reach that, we will be seeing, 10, 20, 30 times worse extreme weather events, droughts, and that will change life as we know it on the surface of the planet.
Yeah, I really agree with you. And like here in the Philippines, in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, we are also experiencing natural catastrophe like the typhoon that happened in Samar. It's like almost Haiyan, and people are suffering. So I think, yeah, we really need to respond to all those causes that we are working for our advocacies. And talking about climate negotiation, you mentioned that COP26 was postponed. Uh,
Yes.
what's the current development of the international climate negotiation? What are the prospects of it? And is there any movement from NGO like yours to push it forward or show alternative solutions?
Many NGOs and movements are really working hard campaigning to wake up the governments and push them to be more ambitious. No, um, of course, we know that for some governments, like the government of the United States, for instance, I think there has to be an agenda for a change in government, because I think for some governments, no matter how hard you push, it's almost impossible for them to actually do what needs to be done. So that's really a major challenge for many movements, for many groups across the world. But we're also hoping that with enough pressure, other governments will listen and will take the steps that are necessary. In terms of the negotiations, the most critical agenda in the negotiations, well, two critical agenda points in the negotiations. First, the agenda for raising ambition but based on equity. What does that mean? The targets of countries to bring down greenhouse gas emissions are so inadequate, especially the rich countries. They have much more emissions, and therefore they need to reduce their emissions in a far greater way and in a faster way. And that's the agenda for what we call raising ambition. They need to increase their pledges. We cannot survive with the current pledges they have made. And if there's no negotiations, it doesn't seem to be that they are going to do it on their own. So that we need this international processes to make sure that we're able to pressure them as citizens, not just from their countries, but citizens of the world needs to pressure all the rich countries to do enough and to do it quickly enough. That doesn't absolve other countries like ours, like the Philippines. No, so we don't contribute as much in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, but the world is already at a place where everybody needs to do something, even your tiny bit no matter whether we make the goal or not of keeping it below 1.5. So our effort is addressing all governments, but especially the rich governments because they have the greatest contribution and therefore they have to reduce a lot and quickly and do it fast. So that's one. The other important agenda for COP is to mobilize the climate finance needed. This is a matter of obligation. We need that climate finance to enable our people to deal with the impacts of climate change. And now we're dealing with so many problems, the impacts of COVID, the impacts of the economic crisis, the impacts of climate change. So this multiple crisis is really magnifying everything, no? Especially for the poor because the impacts on them are greatest, and women, the impacts on them are greatest. And so we need the mobilization of finance for COVID, for climate, for the economic crisis. And that's one of the issues here that we have to keep repeating because the world, the rich governments seem to be more interested in saving companies and big corporations, big banks, than saving people and communities.
So, Leeds, with the negotiation that is happening, what are the negative signs and the signs of hope that you perceive in this ongoing negotiation?
Well, one of the foremost negative signs there is the behavior and the policy of the government of the United States. No? Unfortunately, the United States has to be part of the solution because they are contributing a lot to the problem. We cannot allow the US not to do its share. So we need to pressure the US. So that's one of the the huge issues that we need to take up. What gives us hope? What gives us hope is the fact that the citizens groups everywhere, there's more and more of them acting and mobilizing for climate change. The youth, the young people give us hope because they're mobilizing in the thousands in many places. But clearly, while we're inspired by the action so far, clearly what we're doing right now, all of us together, is not yet enough. No, so we need to increase the what we are doing to increase the pressure, to wake up those who haven't woken up, to wake up those who think, climate change is a problem. It's a problem that will happen, many years from now. If we don't do it now, that's the challenge of this issue. No, we're not feeling the worst yet, but when the worst comes, it's irreversible. So we need to do what we must do now to prevent the worst from happening. And that's sometimes contrary to, human nature. They need to feel it first before they they get agitated to mobilize and to do something. In this case, if we're already feeling something like typhoons of high proportions, that means we can't bring it back to an earlier era where we don't have that kind of thing because these things are irreversible. So what you need to do now is to prevent things from getting much worse, not just for us, but especially for our children. What we are going to bequeath to them a world which will not be friendly to life. So that's what we're very much concerned about.
Thank you, Liddy. I am very happy to hear those answers, and we've been working for some years, and one major turning point of the church as your ally in this campaign is Laudato Si, and I know our viewers are very familiar. And for our viewers, by the way, if you have questions, you can comment down below all your questions, or if you have queries, especially to our guest for this episode. And later we will add Liddy. By the way, before I continue, I think there's a question coming from a very good friend of ours from the Franciscan International, talking about Budi. His question is, as the beginning of July 2020, no more than 20 states submitted their reviewed NDCs. What do you think need to be done to push more states to raise the ambition to review NDCs?
So first, I think citizens' pressure is very key. So because we have all the right arguments in terms of policy, in terms of evidence, of impacts if they don't raise their ambition in their NDCs. NDCs, by the way, is nationally determined contributions. So each government is required to submit what their plans are and what their contributions are to the global effort. And if we just use arguments and evidence, it's not enough. No, because they also have scientists telling them what's going to happen. So there needs to be a lot more pressure than what we have been applying so far. That's why whatever we're doing today, it needs to be more than double or triple. We need to increase that pressure. We need to identify which governments are really the worst because then we need to shame them into doing something else. I mean, to doing more than what they've already promised. And again, these are the richest governments of the world are the ones responsible for their country's emissions, and the richest countries of the world have been emitting so much so that any kind of solution needs for them to do the greatest part, no? The greatest proportion. And so they need to be pressured to do that. Of course, our governments in the South, we also need to remind them we are not going to reach the goal without also our contributions, our fair share of the work. That's a very key word that we use in our campaigning, the fair shares, because no government should be allowed to get away with not doing their fair share. And there's a scientific way of calculating what the fair shares of each government should be. And this is the bad thing about the approach of just nationally determined contributions. Each country will decide on their own, but we have been saying that that's not enough. What if one country makes a decision to do this and it's not even anywhere near 50% of their fair share? It has to be a collective international pressure.
Okay, thank you, Liddy, for that answer. I think Budi now is happy, and thank you for watching, Budi. Greetings also from our friends in Brazil. They're very active. I think that's from Banya Tavares. I don't know how to read Portuguese, but I'll try. A paz seja com todos os hermanos. Bom dia a GPICOFM. To Filipinas, Dios os abençoe, paz e bien. I hope I pronounce it well in Portuguese because I only know Italian and Spanish. So, greetings, Vanya. So, as we continue our discussion, Liddy, I was telling you about this powerful tool that the Pope introduced 5 years ago, and we're celebrating the fifth year anniversary. And the Pope declared a special jubilee about this encyclical Laudato Si. And I don't know if you're aware that this dicastery is promoting this jubilee, and they have this 7-year program of integral ecology and Laudato Si with the sustainable goals. Uh, can you comment on the Vatican promoting this special jubilee? What is your opinion about it?
Well, to be sure, we all shared with you celebrating the release of the Laudato Si. Um, and remember, at around that time it first came out, we had a big conference here in the Philippines on climate change, human rights, that was really meant for faith-based organizations and congregations and the religious community. And I think that it is a very powerful tool. I think we need to do a lot in order to promote this, especially in countries like the Philippines, where the Catholics are the majority, and we need to wake them up to this if they haven't been already, to what it means, the Pope's message, the Papal message, because there it's very clear. I've read it, of course. There it's very clear what the message is and the urgency of how people should act and should respond to the major challenges. Um, and I think the more that the church can do to organize ways that the flock, the congregation, the members of the Catholic Church can actually do something, because sometimes the problem is people want to do something but they don't know exactly what. So we need organizations and we need organized initiatives so that people's desire to do something can be transformed into concrete work. So I'm happy to hear that there is this effort. And yes, we do need a major jubilee moment. We need that on climate change. We also need that for the debt, especially now in the light of the COVID pandemic and the economic crisis. So I was going to maybe advertise a little bit that we need to also work with you again and, raise the call of for jubilee on the issue of the debt and pushing for debt cancellation.
But do you think this will be powerful enough to move the church toward the 1.5-degree target? And do you see any relevant change in the Christian communities, particularly motivated by it?
Well, I'm very happy to know that there are many groups now mobilizing in different places from the Catholic community, but also from the broader Christian community. One of the initiatives that has been very noteworthy is the divestment from fossil fuel that several religious groups, including Catholic groups, have joined. And so I also know that the Pope has also sent out a message about divesting from fossil fuel. So that was really very welcome. I think yes, the Laudato Si has done a lot to increase the participation of and the leadership of the Catholic community in this fight against climate change. But as I said, whatever we're all doing right now, we need to increase that some more and to speed it up some more. So the more that church groups can do something to provide people a way of contributing to the effort, then the better. And I repeat this point that we realize as we do our daily work, a lot of people want to contribute something, want to do something, they just don't know what. So we need to provide them with these platforms, with these vehicles for contributing, for participating.
So, Lids, uh, what do you think is the role of a religious or spiritual tradition in climate action in concrete terms? And what do you think can individual do about it? Liddy, are you still there? Liddy, hello. I think Liddy is having some technical problems with his connection, but as we heard from her, no, there are a lot of challenging challenges in our campaign, especially now that the church is coming up with this jubilee. And I agree with Liddy. It's not only a jubilee of the goals that is being given already, but we need to look at on the things that we need to focus. And one is the depths. And she is also asking us to partner with their network or with their work to to do this jubilee with climate and depths. So while waiting for Liddy, there are some comments here on our comment section. Again, there's Budi saying, "Great work, Liddy," and Vanya is extending her fraternal embrace to Liddy and me. I'm wondering if, okay, you know, that's the only thing with technology. We need to bear with it. And sometimes we understand that technology is very advanced, but there are times like this that technology is not in line with what we do, and I'm really sorry for the technical problems. But I think Liddy is trying to enter again into our showroom. So while waiting for Liddy, you can uh, put some comments. Uh, yeah, I'm back. She said that she will be back, but the sounds is very bad. No, we will bear with her because we are on the last part of our segment with this talk the change. No? So to our brothers and sisters who just logged in watching our show this afternoon, we're talking about climate change, the climate negotiation, and what are the updates. So Lydie did a very good updating about it. So she's really trying her best to come back. And by the way, don't forget to log on to www.laudato si revolution, and that is the response of the Order of Friars Minor with our campaign. And with www.laudato si revolution, you can see all the initiatives of our dear friars from all over the world, especially their initiative in the campaign. It was launched side by side last May 24 during the 5th year anniversary of Laudato Si. So if you are willing enough and you are passionate to continue that movement, log on to www.laudatosirevolution.org and be the change that you want. So I think Liddy is here. Liddy? Liddy? Maybe you can turn off your camera so we can preserve your voice for the last answers. So I think she's trying her best, and we are very fortunate that the line, especially the connection of the network in those important questions, are very clear. But we're on the latter part of our show, which is uh, we are near to end it, no? But we're waiting for our guest. Hopefully, she can come back. So back to promoting the Laudato Si Revolution. It is translated into languages: Italian, English, and Portuguese. And you can see a lot of initiatives, not only in English. So what are you waiting for? You log on to www.laudatosirevolution.org. And okay, she said I cannot hear you,
Father
but
Angel, now I can hear
okay,
you
we're very glad that she's back. Lady,
a bit.
actually, yeah, we're on the last part of our episode.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How about me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, Lady? Lady? Yeah. That's the only thing that to say, welcome to the Philippines, where our internet connection is really uh, slow and trying our best to cope up. But anyway, we're very thankful that we can still connect. I think Liddy, can you hear me? Or I can chat. By the way, brothers and sisters who are watching us in this live Talk the Change, you are live here on the Facebook page of JPICOFM, and you can also watch this through the other channels. Okay, now we're going to show you the website that I am talking about, the triple dot laudatosirevolution.org. So you can see the initiative of our brothers. This one is from Korea. It's about renewable energy, and uh, the other part of the website is about the campaign. You can also see about the initiatives, and at first, when you log on, you will see the message of our Minister General. It is coming from different languages. Uh, of course, we have this pilgrimage in Asia. The Korean brothers initiated it, and it will be virtually roam around into the different entities. You can see the icon of Laudato Si inside this website. You can also uh, watch the concert that we did from the different entities. The last one is from Brazil, the Serata de Laudato Si. And also part of the website is the energy transition and lifestyle change. And if you notice, you can also see the different postings of the people all over the world. If you use the hashtag LS Revolution and post it on your Instagram or Twitter, it is powered here on our website. And by the way, Laudato Si Revolution, uh, we have many partners from all over the world. In here in the Philippines, you have see now you can see our partners. So if you are interested with their work, you can also click it or research on their websites. Okay, so she's back again, but she cannot open her camera. Liddy,
Yes, Mother Angel, I'm so sorry.
no
I think
problem.
that in my part of the city, there's a lot of rain now.
Yeah, don't worry. We're on the last part, and I have a couple of questions, and I think that will be the end of this segment. So, Liddy,
Okay.
what do you think is the role of the religious uh, and spiritual tradition in terms of climate action in concrete terms? And what do individuals can do?
Well, first of all, I think the church and the religious congregations are in a very good position to reach a lot of people. Uh, I'm speaking from our experience here in the Philippines, where 80% of the population is Catholic. We still have very active parishes and people who are very active, lay people who are very active. And so the church can do a lot in order to reach out to parishes, communities that the congregations work with, so that they can tell them more about climate change and the need to act now. That it's not just an issue of the environment, it's an issue of life. And it touches on many aspects of our lives, from economic to social to cultural. So, and it's now become an issue of survival for all of us. If we can do that, reach out to the different parishes, to the different lay people who are active, and give them different ideas for what can be done. And these are things which require us to send messages to governments, not just our government in our own country, but especially also to the governments of the rich countries. As citizens of the world, they have an obligation to listen to us, because what they're doing affects all of us. So there are many ways to do this, from petitions to letters to actual actions. There's many different ways of reaching out, even during COVID, because there's online platforms that can be used. And the idea is, how do we step up pressure? How do we step up pressure? If we want to reach, for instance, the United States, we can reach the president, we can reach the Congress people, the Senate, different governors of the different states, who are now, many of them, and this is the hopeful signs, many of them are actually doing something, because they think that their president right now is just totally impossible for to expect anything from him. So the United States, and also the Europe, the countries in Europe, I mentioned them because these are the countries that have huge contributions. We're also mobilizing to call on Asian governments, including China and India. These are big countries, so they have big emissions. But don't let the rich governments trick us into blaming the big countries. Of course, they will have big emissions; they're very big. But if you look at per capita, which means if you divide the emissions per person in the country, the highest emitter is still the United States. So we need to all of us to we need to act. So we need to carry these messages, and I'm sure that the churches and religious groups can think of many creative ways to bring that message across to governments.
Okay, Liddy, last question. Yes. Now, we have this Laudato Si Revolution campaign as our response. As Franciscans, we own our spirituality. What is your challenge to us, Franciscans? What can you tell us, Franciscans, now that this campaign is still in the middle hanging? How are you going to challenge us?
I've had a long history of experience working with Franciscans in our struggles here in the Philippines, and I salute and my hats off to the Franciscans because they have been really a very vital part of our movements for change here in the Philippines and internationally. So my challenge is, please don't hold back. Please assume leadership in these things, because we need people who will go the extra mile. We need movements. We need leaders who will be prophetic, but also be activists in the work. And we need people to lead, because in this case, in this situation we are facing, the world is facing, to be a servant means to be willing to lead. To be a good servant means to be willing to lead, because we don't have enough leaders, and we need leaders from all constituencies and communities.
There you go, brothers and sisters. Thank you for that challenge, Liddy. I know there are friars listening and watching this episode. I hope they heard it and they will really join us with our cause. And I'm very thankful with our live audiences, their comments. Like there's Vicky Lopez, thank you for the transmission. I think that as we strengthen ourselves in more action, Laudato Si will bring many important change. Moody again, great resource from the OFM initiative, Laudato Si Revolution. It is useful and inspiring. And from Pauline Macari, I totally appreciate the resources in the Laudato Si Revolution. Thank you for your generosity. And Liddy, on this part, I thank you personally for all your help. You're one of my inspiration as I continue my ministry. I pray to God that God will give you more strength as you continue your work. And hopefully we will see you, each other face to face, not only virtually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Soon,
Thank you.
soon.
Anything that you want to promote, like if people want to contact you or anything about your advocacy, can you
Uh,
please?
yeah, I have. I think you have my email address. Please feel free to reach out to us if you need resources, if you need us to share our ideas and the activities. And probably my last message here is, the church and the Pope played a huge role in our Jubilee Debt campaign of like that was more than 20 years back. And we really want to have a huge effort now on climate and on the debt. And we hope that you will take leadership in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liddy. And lastly, there's a comment from a live viewer. Thank you. All the best to the Philippines.
Oh,
Again,
thank
time is
you.
very quick, and we are very fortunate for this platform. And personally, it's life changing working with this advocacy. I hope that our children and the children of our children will really play a big role. And for all the friars listening, let us work together for the common good, for our common home, and let us help Pope Francis to promote Laudato Si and its spirituality. It is the spirituality of Saint Francis. Live from the Philippines, I am the JPIC animator of the province of San Pedro Bautista and the East Asian Conference. This is your brother, Angel Cortez. Peace and all good. Thank you. Bye bye.